I'm Liam from Cryptoslate, and I'm joined with Moe Vela, former senior advisor to Joe Biden, CEO of the Vela Group, star of Unicorn Hunters, and a director of Transparent Business. Hi, Mo. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Liam. Liam. It's great to be with you.
No, it's
By
fantastic.
the way, Liam, we have to start with this. It is just wholly unfair in life when people like you get to have a man bun and I look like this.
You know what's hilarious? I went through my entire life just like hating people with man buns until COVID hit, and I grew my hair because I couldn't get it cut, and I decided I'm just going to grow it so I can donate it to charity. So,
Oh,
so I did that. So I didn't cut my hair for like 18 months, but then I kind of got used to it. So I've had it cut.
now
It
you're
was quite a
like,
lot longer, and now I'm just used to it. And now I'm that guy with a man bun, and I hate myself a little bit for it. But I mean,
well, I'm kind of glad I brought it up because what a beautiful story that you donated it to charity. Good for you. What a
yeah, I
beautiful
mean,
thing to
like I got something out of that situation and let me know to go and get my hair cut. So anyway, I mean, talking about that,
I would if I could. How's that? I would if I could.
you can trim your beard. So you're
Well,
involved in so many different projects. Like, how do you find the time,
yes.
first of all?
Well, to be honest with you, I'll tell you what, it never feels like I'm too busy. And I'll tell you, I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed, Liam. I literally live, and I'm this is from the bottom of my heart. I live in this profound sense of gratitude. And the reason why is I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I never feel burdened. I really don't. I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like I've got too much to do because I literally just love what I do. So I get to
Fantastic.
be creative. I get to use my
Mm-hmm.
strategic prowess, if you will. I
Mm-hmm.
get to use my business acumen, and then to co-star on the number one business reality show in the world now was a dream come true from my youth.
Fantastic. And I mean, I've been able to catch a few of the episodes now, and I'll leave it to the end because it's just a personal thing. But I've got to say, the
Okay.
thing that I was most excited about was seeing Far UV on the first episode, because
Oh, good.
I saw that. I remember during when COVID first hit in the UK, I
Yeah.
was researching things that we could do to sort of protect the family, and I found out about Far UV back in sort of March 2020, and I was like,
Yeah.
why is this not in every single airport, train station? Like, if we just had that as the
School
lighting, then none of this would have
in
happened.
every school. Can you imagine? Every school in the world should have that.
Yeah, we
I
wouldn't have had
agree.
any of this. So anyway,
I agree. I
what I want to
agree.
talk about today in particular is one of the projects you're working on is
Yeah.
Unicoin. So from your
Yeah.
perspective, can you just tell me a little bit about Unicoin?
Absolutely. We're really excited about Unicoin. And let me tell you for a multiple reasons, for multiple reasons. First and foremost, because of the Russian-Ukraine conflict,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother discussion. But
Mm-hmm.
I stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, of
Mm-hmm.
course, and denounce Vladimir Putin.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one thing that comes into play. The second is we are suffering from unprecedented inflation
Yeah.
here in the United States. I think other
7.8, I
countries,
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're in bad. It's not good, and I think other countries are struggling with similar circumstances. And so, when we decided to launch Unicoin, what we realized was it needed to be something that was not going to be impacted by these type of military conflicts, by
Yeah.
inflation, and by the volatility of the traditional cryptocurrencies. So what
Mm-hmm.
we did, Liam, is we created an asset-backed and
Yes.
dividend-paying
Mm-hmm.
cryptocurrency. So Unicoin is asset-backed. In the next several months, we will be developing what we will call the Global Innovation Fund. So
Mm-hmm.
when you buy Unicoins, the part of the funds that we raise by selling Unicoin will go into this fund that will actually be investing in the companies that appear on Unicorn Hunters and for the companies that don't make it onto Unicorn Hunters that are also emerging growth companies with tremendous potential.
Mm-hmm.
So when you buy Unicoin, you're in essence, buying an asset-backed coin that will be developing a portfolio of emerging growth companies, an equity stake in emerging growth companies. So exciting, so amazing. I'm so proud to be a part of it.
I mean, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because, I mean, on
Yeah.
the show, you actually called Unicorn Hunters the show globally impactful, as a quote from you.
Yes.
So, do you see that Unicorn is going to take that even further then?
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you some reasons why. I mentioned a couple already. Anything we can do right now for investors, and by the way, I want it to be anybody, as we do on Unicorn Hunters. Eventually, I want anybody from the janitor to the teacher to the cafeteria worker, and yes, the doctors, engineers, and lawyers too. We want everybody to have a chance to get in the investment ecosystem, right? Why can't everybody access wealth creation? So,
Yeah.
same thing with the Unicoin. Eventually, I want everybody that wants to buy a Unicoin. Eventually, we'll get to that point where anybody can, right? Right now, the thresholds are still a little higher, but
Yeah,
I'm excited about it.
$5,000, I think,
Yeah,
the
five
minimum amount.
thousand dollar minimum, exactly. And so, Liam, look, the thing is, I think it protects us a little bit against the volatility of the economy, like inflation, right? Because it's asset backed. Because it's asset backed, it'll have dividend paying mechanisms. Because because we decided to begin pre-selling it as a securitized token, right? Then, in my opinion, it brings predictability, and we are not as nervous or worried about what regulatory outcomes come from the president's executive order, right? This is important because the other cryptos, right, have to worry about the fact that what's going to come out of that executive order, what type of regulation. We are already SEC compliant. So we're
Right,
selling,
okay.
we sell it as a securitized token. So we're already it's compliant with any regulations that exist as a security exchange. You understand?
So you'd be regulated under the SEC?
Correct.
Okay.
So we don't have to worry about what may come, right? Regulatorily,
Interesting.
right? Which is the other ones are sitting around going, oh my God, what are they going to do? We're not as nervous. We're not as nervous.
Obviously, in any sort of documentation, you've got to write the right things from a legal point of view. So I know in the ICO document, it says new regulations or policies may materially adversely affect the development of blockchain networks and blockchain assets, including tokens such as Unicoin. So just explain just a little bit more for us why you see there being a difference in, say for argument's sake, at the moment, we know Biden's executive order, he's basically asked every regulatory body to explore it and put proper committees in place. What's to stop the SEC from saying, okay, currently you're compliant, but you are a blockchain asset, so now we're going to take you out of being under our current system and put you in a new one?
There is nothing to keep them from doing that. However, there are other reasons we feel confident and comfortable with the way we're doing this. Because number one, let's go back to something basic before I get into that particular topic. I want to go back to that.
Yeah.
I don't want to avoid that. But I think it's important to go back to something very, very fundamental. The underlying reason that people are nervous around the world in the crypto ecosystem by these executive orders and by the scrutiny that has resulted from the Russian-Ukraine conflict, right? That's one of the main impetuses that all of a sudden people are realizing the volatility and the vulnerability.
And the centralization.
And exactly, Leah, right? The decentralization is one of the fundamental problems. The second fundamental problem is the anonymity, right? We don't know who owns, there is no central ownership of Bitcoin. We do not know does somebody own 60% of Bitcoin? We have no idea. We have no idea who's buying Bitcoin. We have no idea who owns Bitcoin. We have no idea who's trading in Bitcoin. We have no idea. That means that the dark web can be involved, is most likely involved, right? That means that Russian oligarchs could be involved. We have no idea. So why do we not worry as much about the executive order from a Unicoin perspective? Because even if they do what you suggested at the end, which is we're going to create a whole new set of regulations, we're securitized. We are transparent. We are not anonymous. We are centralized. And we believe in compliance. We try to be compliant in every way, shape, and form at all times. And so therefore, it doesn't make us as nervous as the decentralized, anonymous, right? Volatile and vulnerable, because we're not any of those four things.
Hmm.
So the way I look at it, we're not as much at the mercy of the outcome of the executive order as the decentralized, anonymous,
Hmm.
lacking in transparency cryptos are.
And I mean, at the very least, you can see there as well that you're starting from a point of regulation, where in comparison
Absolutely.
to other things.
I
Um,
mean, that has to buy us some
yeah.
goodwill too, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
no, I definitely can see that. And I mean, you'll have to, for me, it's my kind of my job to play devil's advocate here, because I mean,
of course,
ultimately, the concept of an asset-backed blockchain token that pays a dividends to innovation funds with people access around the world, fantastic. I love the concept, no doubt about
thank
it.
you.
But one of the things you say there is that being centralized is a positive. There's a lot of people in the crypto community that would argue that the Russia-Ukraine crisis is showing us that we need less centralization, because things can get turned off and on at will. If you think of, let's, for instance, talk about, we don't get too political with this, because I completely agree with your standpoints on this, but there are innocent people in Russia, for instance, that are not involved with Putin, that now can't use their MasterCards and Visa cards because they've pulled out. Whereas with crypto, those people would still have access to it. So with your token being centralized, you are at the whim of the US regulatory bodies and regime. So you think that is still a positive, like, from a global point
I,
of view?
I, I absolutely do. And I go back to what I said a minute ago as to my major reason why I still believe in this instance, centralization is not
Hmm.
a bad thing. Let's keep in mind, I'm not suggesting, I'm not prepared to advocate for a centralized digital banking system.
Hmm.
Okay, these are, ours is a private,
Hmm.
right, privately held. Even if we go public on an IPO, it's still centralized, but not by a governmental entity,
Yeah.
centralized by a private sector company,
And
right?
and this is where it's really hard to have these sorts of conversations, because people think it's black or white, it's centralized or it's decentralized, and you're showcasing that's not the case.
That is not the case. By centralization in our case, I mean, we're privately held, right? At
Hmm.
this point, we're publicly reporting, but we're privately held, right? And I'm just talking about centralization in the sense that there will be an actual organizational infrastructure.
Hmm.
And let me tell you why else that matters. And
Yeah.
I mean, I thank you for clarifying that, because there is no black and white.
Hmm.
Centralization does not equate to just governmental
Hmm.
centralization.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's, I think, a good distinction we've got to make in this discussion. And thank you for clarifying that. But it also means when you are centralized in the definition that I'm using for Unicoin, it means, guess what? We get to actually market
Hmm.
and do brand awareness,
Hmm.
which is going to do what? Increase the value of the coin
Hmm.
to the general public, right?
Hmm.
Things that you really can't do at the others, right?
So it's
That
more
are not central.
difficult. And like I was talking to Paul earlier about, like, some of the major issues with blockchain and Web3 is the fact that it is new technology. It's all being done open source. It's been done by people all around the world. The documentation is
Yep,
terrible. So would you say
correct.
you're looking to bring kind of the best of both worlds? So the best of blockchain and
Absolutely.
decentralized ledgers with traditional business.
I that's absolutely what we're doing,
Hmm.
and it's working, right? Like already, for example, we have just put a big banner advertising in all the New York City airports,
Mm.
right? There are these beautiful banners that say
Yeah.
Unicoin, unicoin.com, right?
Yeah.
Something you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have traditional centralization
Hmm.
from let's call it centralization from a corporate perspective. How's that?
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe that'll make people realize
Hmm.
what we're trying to distinguish here, right? Again, I am not saying centralized a CBDC, a
Hmm.
centralized bank digital currency. That may come out of this executive order. That's another discussion for another day.
Hmm.
That's much more complex. I'm talking about just a corporate structure where we can market, we can brand, we can promote, we can. By the way, a few days ago, earlier this week at Unicoin, we just announced we will not sell Unicoins to Russians,
Okay. Yeah.
because we believe we need to take a stance to prevent this gigantic loophole,
Hmm.
right now, that exists in the decentralized cryptocurrencies,
Okay.
where we do not know if oligarchs are circumventing the sanctions. For all we know, Vladimir Putin is circumventing the sanctions by using the cryptocurrency ecosystem. And we don't want to enable that and participate in that circumvention. The sanctions were there rightfully for a purpose, to send a message, to try to harm and punish him for this absolutely maniacal, horrific activity, right? And the taking of innocent lives in Ukraine. So we don't want to enable nor participate in that circumvention. And right now, the current decentralized system is prime and vulnerable for that circumvention. I call it a gaping, gigantic loophole, right? So, you know, we have to be careful what we advocate for. There are unfortunately, you know, repercussions, right, to that decentralization. One of them is this potential circumvention and the dark web. Another thing I just denounce, and I just don't have any appetite, neither do any of us at Unicoin, to even create a situation where anybody could play in the dark web with our coin.
Yeah. I mean, so what would you say to the rebuttal around kind of the dark web and crypto is obviously that bags of cash have been used for transactions and dead drops around the world, and they've quite often been in dollars for like hundreds of years. What do you see the difference between the dark web and cash in that aspect?
I don't necessarily, I don't want to get into a debate over where the dark web is impacting society, right? Because I'm not foolish enough to believe that it only gets involved in crypto. That's, to your point, that is not true or accurate. The dark web isn't involved in, for God's sakes, human trafficking and sex slavery and all kinds of horrific, improper, illegal, very disgraceful activity for years, as you point out, for years, right? But I guess my point is I rather play offense than defense, right? To use a sports analogy. And so what we're doing is we're being proactive at Unicoin to just not even enable nor allow, if there's any way we can mitigate.
Don't let it get to that point.
Exactly.
It's easier to control.
That's exactly right. And that comes with corporate centralization of crypto.
It's interesting because you say, like, obviously we're doing this via Zoom. We've had the last 2 years of this sorts of things, but do you feel that it is different being able to have a tight-knit board of directors making a decision as opposed to a group of people anonymously voting through validation on chains?
Through trades and exchanges that we have no idea who they are. You know, listen, I see the value in that anonymity. I do. And I don't want your audience to send me hate mail. I'm sure they won't. I get it. I get it. I honor it. I respect it. And I celebrate it. However, why should we be opposed to transparency? I don't fear transparency. Okay. I don't fear healthy regulation, because if it's healthy regulation, it's there to protect the vulnerable. Now, let me be very clear to your audience and to you. I am the first to criticize when I believe any federal government or any government of any kind, at any level, any part in anywhere in the world, over-regulates. I will be the first ones to be vocally critical. Okay. So I do not support over-regulation, and I hope that they do not go there in the crypto space in the United States. I thought the president and my dear friends, those are my former colleagues that I worked with for many years in Washington, who probably wrote up this executive order. I thought they were brilliant in saying that they did not want to stifle innovation. They were really, they went out of their way to put in there that they wanted to mitigate risks, but not stifle innovation. And I give them a lot of credit, Liam, for that. Now the jury's out, as we say, as an attorney, right? The jury is out. We will have to wait and see what is the outcome of this assessment and this process. But I will be the first one, and I'll come back on your show and I will criticize if they over-regulate. So I don't fear regulation. I think we should be open to transparency. So is it a board of directors? Listen, I sit on 6 of them. I don't think we're the end all be all. We're not extra special people.
Hmm.
And I don't think that we're the solution to everything. So no, the answer is, I don't think a board of directors maybe is the right answer all the
Okay.
time. But I do believe that transparency, the ability to mitigate risks, the ability to mitigate the risk of the dark web getting involved, anything you can do to mitigate the risks of hacking. I think anything you can do to understand who it is that's buying, trading, and exchanging your coin.
Hmm.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'd like to know who that is.
Yeah. So at the moment, you're in a sort of a pre-purchase round where you're basically you're raising
Correct.
funds for Unicoin through transparent business. So no
Right.
tokens have been minted at this point.
That is correct. Not
Could
till
you maybe give
2023.
us, and you've also said in terms of the actual utility of the tokens is still in development. Do you have any idea of one, when you may go to mint, two, what the coins specifically may do, and three, what blockchain you're looking at?
So let's see. Number one, early 2023.
Okay.
Okay. Number two, uh, what was number two? I'm 60,
You,
Liam. At this point, I can't even remember what I had.
the,
I didn't forgot I had a cup of coffee in front of me.
I do too. I finished it. The utility of the token, it's still in development.
Still in development. Oh, what blockchain to be determined, right? We still have not made a decision whether we're doing our own
Okay.
or we're using a third party,
Hmm.
right? We have that choice. We understand that, and we are evaluating that with expert consultants, and we'll make a decision on that shortly in the near future. But we will mint in early 2023. That is the goal. And you asked, what will it do? Look, we went out to our initial shareholders of transparent business at a penny,
Hmm.
right, per Unicoin. And now it's, I think, at a dime.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can see that we oversubscribed on the penny round within 72 hours. That gives you any indication of the appetite.
Hmm.
And we have 4,500 investors in 142 countries. That was for transparent business.
Hmm.
So we offered that initial penny round to all of our existing shareholders, and we oversubscribed in 72 hours. Just to
Wow.
give you an indication. And that was representative of the majority of those countries, right?
Hmm.
From people from all walks of life.
Fantastic.
And we're really proud of that. And I think it says several things. One, I think people that want to get into the crypto space that were reluctant,
Hmm.
Liam, because of the issues we've described
Yeah.
throughout this conversation. I think those people were yearning for something a little bit more mitigating,
Hmm.
a little less vulnerable, a little less volatile, a little less subject to inflationary impacts,
Yeah.
a little less vulnerable to military conflicts, right?
Hmm.
A little more predictable, a little bit more stable, right? And of course, secure.
Hmm.
And the asset backed, I think, really is catching a lot of people's attention because it kind of brings together their traditional investing
Yeah.
with this crypto world
Hmm.
that to many people, I don't know if you know this, but as of in the last few weeks, the last figure I saw, of course, it probably changed already, but 16 to 20% of Americans have all now either bought or traded in crypto.
Hmm.
And so whenever you and I someday talk about the executive order, you're going to hear me talk about that, because that's why I think the president decided he had to do an executive order, because when 1 out of every 5 Americans is already involved in the cryptocurrency
Hmm.
ecosystem,
You can't ignore it.
he recognized it's here to stay. This is the future, and you might as well get in it and like figure out how to do it in a safe,
Hmm.
healthy, sustainable way that is protective yet promoting innovation.
One quick was obviously we're not here to talk about that, but one quick one is my view is that that he also wants to get ahead of the rest of the world in regulation. He wants to lead the world in it
Absolutely.
because that then by leading regulation is the way to lead the new monetary system if we get there. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. And to be honest with you, this I don't want this to sound the way it's going to sound. So I want to preempt it by saying this does not come from an arrogant place,
Hmm.
but there are many countries still in the world that expect the United States to lead.
Yeah.
And I say that humbly because, to be honest with you, we had 4 years where most countries were disgusted with us. Many of us in our own country were disgusted with us.
Mhm.
But thank God we're out of that now. And
Indeed.
I still think people are looking for the United States to be a beacon of leadership of when we can. And this is one of the chances we can again, right?
Hmm.
And so I couldn't agree with you more. I think the president realized that we have a responsibility. I
Okay.
really do. I think that's the way he thinks. I know him quite well,
Hmm.
as you know, and
Yeah.
I worked for him and I was his advisor, and I love him to death. He's one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met.
Fantastic.
And I know how he thinks. I can promise you he's thinking he has a responsibility, right, to play a leadership role,
Yeah.
since this is going to be the new frontier,
Yeah.
you know.
Brilliant. So, I mean, hopefully, we're going to see Unicoin as being a part of that. I think it's very exciting to see. I mean, do
Thank
you
you.
see it? It seems it's like, oh, what? Yeah, there's one thing I did want to ask about that. So, to me, it's very much like a mutual fund or like an innovation ETF,
Yep.
um, but on the blockchain. What would you say? And just to summarize here, now to sum up, why should someone pick Unicoin and a tokenized ETF essentially over a traditional ETF?
Well, first of all, uh, a couple of things. One, I reiterate the transparency aspect of it, right? Because the beauty of Unicoin is you're going to be able to go onto the website and you will actually be able to follow the companies that we
Hmm.
invest in.
Hmm.
So to me, again, is that different than the traditional? You know, sometimes you know what the portfolio is of the fund you invested in,
Hmm.
but I don't think this will be unprecedented access to information, Liam. This
Hmm.
will be unprecedented transparency to the portfolio that your Unicoin fund invested in, right? You'll actually be able to even develop a relationship with that company if you want to, right? So I just think the unprecedented access to transparency. I think it's different in the sense that there'll be a much stronger interactivity between because of the centralization of Unicoin. We will actually be able to communicate with those who buy Unicoin.
Hmm.
So again, when you buy into a traditional fund, you might receive an email once a quarter or something, right,
Yeah.
with some type of an update.
Yeah.
This will be very different on the communication level. This
Hmm.
will be very different on the interactive level. This will be very different on the transparency level. And there's probably 5 other things that I haven't thought of yet
Hmm.
that I'll think of as soon as we hang up.
Yeah.
But those 3 alone, in my opinion, right? And then the fourth one, I think the most to me, probably the one that resonates the most with me personally would be, why would I pick Unicoin over a traditional fund situation? Is because it allows me to get into crypto.
Hmm.
And crypto, you and I just established, and I think the president is recognizing and acknowledging through his executive order, is the future.
Yeah.
And so if you go to the traditional route, you're in the traditional. If
Yeah.
you go in the crypto, you get the traditional, some flavors of traditional,
Hmm.
but in the crypto space and in the blockchain world. So there's the number one reason for me, is I want to play in the crypto space. I want to do it in the safest, right, most least volatile, least vulnerable way. That's
Hmm.
why I would pick the Unicoin.
And I mean, I couldn't agree more in the fact that I think what's really been established here from talking to you, and I think it's really, really important, as in so many different walks of life, they said nothing's black and white. Just because crypto was born from Satoshi's white paper to be anonymous, a new form of money, doesn't mean that's all it can be. It's evolving. And you've got lots of kind of crypto punks that only want it to be that way. And for me personally, I agree that we need to evolve and develop and bring what's good from the old world. We're going to call it the old world
That's right.
now. Bring it through and get rid of the rubbish.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And honestly, this conversation has really been affirming for me because I think we have hit on some of the most important topics. And I hope people that watch and listen will take that and start realizing what you just said, which is this is the evolution that has occurred in every system in world history, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
In healthcare, all the way over
Mm-hmm.
to financial systems, every economic process, you name it, it starts somewhere and then it evolves and it grows and you adjust,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think crypto is going to keep growing and evolving. And I think we have a responsibility, as you said, to look for what's worked well, fix what isn't working so well, right? Improve, enhance, improve, enhance, improve, enhance.
Yep.
And let's not be fearful of change. That's been a human innate condition throughout world history is we innately fear change. But let's not in crypto. Let's embrace the evolution. Let's embrace the growth. Let's make it better and safer and more productive and healthy for everyone.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Mo. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Liam, for having me.